Welcome to the Stadio del Alpi, this splendid new football ground which is such a credit to the city of Turin. First seen in the World Cup and now the joint home of Juventus and Torino. Well, today it's Torino against Inter, whose plans have been affected by the rigours of a UEFA Cup match in midweek, away in Austria against Rapid Vienna. They lost the game 2-1. They lost Lothar Matthäus for this afternoon's encounter through injury, and sadly some of their supporters became embroiled in crowd violence. In the absence of Matthäus, the number 10 shirt passes to Mandolini. But remember, Inter have won both their opening league matches. Well, Torino are returning to what they believe is their rightful place in the First Division, last season's Second Division champions. They're a club renowned for its youth policy and several home products in today's lineup to support, in particular, two foreign stars. In attack, there's Luis Muller of Brazil, who certainly made an impact in the World Cup. He's wearing number 9, and their latest acquisition, Rafael Martin Vasquez from Real Madrid. A new coach too in Emiliano Mondonico. The referee, Rosario Labello, who's never frightened to brandish the red card. Inter with 4 points out of 4, attacking the goal to the left in the first half. Torino with only 1 point from their 2 games so far, although they played rather better than that suggests. And straight away, a competitive challenge by Berti on the captain Cravero. It really is a great setting for top-class football, and is surely an incentive to Torino to do well after spending just 1 season in the Second Division. And maybe it will lift Inter from their European disappointments earlier in the week. And Martin Vasquez flattened by Berti. Berti in particular with a competitive start to this game. Now, Martin Vasquez is such a key man. The Spaniard in some distress. Trevor Francis alongside me in the commentary position. Trevor, whose splendid playing career was crowned by a spell here in Italy. And I'm sure he's got a view on this.
Yes, that was rather a bad foul, and I'm quite surprised that after just 1 minute, Berti's already been involved in 2 little incidents. First of all, a bad tackle on Cravero, the Torino sweeper, and there he went in on Vasquez very, very high, and he was rather fortunate to escape a booking from Mr. Labello.
Berti was substituted last week, so maybe he's been told 1 or 2 home truths by the Inter coach Trapattoni about his application. He's certainly made the sort of start that the Torino fans would not appreciate, but maybe his coach would. Torino returning to what they would regard as their rightful place in the First Division after last season in Serie B, and wanting to make an impact, as they were doing the season before they were relegated. They've got a corner, and Martin Vasquez well enough after the attentions of Berti to come across and take it. Zenga staying on his line. We've spoken of the injury to Matthäus, but Walter Zenga was doubtful a couple of days ago for this game for a knock he picked up against Rapid Vienna in Austria. A damaged finger, but he's pass fit. And Inter may well need him at his best, with Torino making a swaggering start here. It's a good tackle by Ferri on Sordo. And Sordo, in trying to get the ball back, has given away the free kick.
Well, it's certainly a positive start from both teams. So often in Italy you see the away team going away from home, playing it very, very tight, looking for a 0-0 result. But Inter started very well. In Torino have replied with a good attack and a corner there just after a couple of minutes. So very, very positive start from both teams.
And all the early signs, really, that there's much more passion about this game than the two others that we've brought you so far this season. And the season does tend to warm up after the opening week, simply because of the way the fixtures are put into the computer, or come out of the computer, should I say, with a certain amount of seeding done for the early weeks, where the big teams don't meet each other, and Mandolini, the latest victim.
Yes, I also feel, Martin, that the supporters add to the occasion, because as we saw in the opening two games, there weren't particularly big crowds, because the weather at this stage of the season is still relatively warm, and many of the supporters are stood on the beaches. But I was looking at the temperatures yesterday in Turin, they're in their early 70s, so it's not too hot for soccer.
And it's a huge crowd here in this marvellous setting, remembered by West Germany with some affection, but not perhaps by English fans after the semi-final of the World Cup. And here's Torino in, with Zenga complaining that they weren't really doing their jobs in dealing with the thrust from Pollicano. We've had 5 minutes, a lively 5 minutes too.
Yes, it's okay Zenga complaining there about his defence, but he must shoulder some of the blame there, because it all resulted from a very, very bad throw-out from him.
Bianchi. Pizzi is the number 8, one of the new acquisitions for Inter this season. And here's Klinsmann, turning into trouble. Lentini. Muller pulling away to the left. Bergami with him, but Muller might get his shot in, and does. And they isolated one-on-one then. Once Muller had slipped aside Bergami, which takes a little bit of doing in the first place.
Yes, it was a good run from Muller. Diagonal run away from Bergami. Got the space and got his shot in, but unfortunately wasn't on target. But I think that Muller's going to find himself in that position quite often this afternoon, because I'm just looking to see who Torino have replaced scorer with, and it appears to be exactly no one at the moment. Just Muller's been left forward.
Bremer. Berti taking up a good position again, and this time the roles were reversed, because Berti guided it down, and it was Aldo Serena who wrapped his left foot round the ball and saw it move on to fly off the bar.
That was great play there from Inter. Good ball from Mandolini. Little knockback from Berti into the path of Serena. Whereas Berti before wanted too many touches, Serena hit the ball first time. It was unfortunate to see the ball hit the top of the crossbar. That was an excellent attacking move from Inter Milan. I feel the problem is, Martin, that when you are playing a forward ball of that sort of distance, about 30 or 40 yards, and when you've only got one target to hit in Muller, it becomes very, very important that the ball is got to be absolutely perfect.
Here's Lentini, only 21. Product of this good Torino youth policy. But rather embarrassing himself right in front of the dugout and right in front of worldwide television. Berti well forward again. He's not the greatest on his left foot, but he's trying to pick a pass into the centre now. Cross seized upon by Pollicano. It was an exciting run and a pass that invited Muller to reach it in the centre, and he was just stopped by some perceptive defending by Ferri, and some very necessary defending too. A great burst by Pollicano.
Yes, it was a great driving run from Pollicano. Took the ball possibly 40, 50 yards down the left there, driving all the way, using his good pace and his strength. Got past the defender and put a very, very dangerous ball into the penalty box. And Muller was unfortunate not to get on the end of it. In fact, it was good covering from Riccardo Ferri there to to thwart the danger for Inter.
Well, I mentioned Carrillo's handball last week, which cost Torino a point away to Bari, but he's back in the scheme of things now, with Annoni having to give way to that injury. So Giuseppe Carrillo, wearing number 14, is the first substitute used today. Muller. Brazil had a disappointing World Cup, of course, but Muller, who is temperamental as well as talented, and was perhaps not expected to be a major figure for them necessarily, of course scored the goal which knocked Scotland out. Got another goal against Costa Rica as well, with the help of a deflection, and actually can look back on the World Cup with some happy memories. Not all the Brazilians can say that.
That's correct. He's a very, very mobile type of player, and obviously got an eye for goal, but I just feel that he's not exactly the type of player that you'd leave up front by himself. If you look at Serena, for example, he possibly could be left up front because he's big, strong, can hold the ball up well, but I feel that Muller definitely needs someone alongside him to have a partnership, to take a little bit of the weight off him, because playing against players like Bergami and Ferri, two World Cup players from the Italian national team, it's very, very difficult.
Serena. Berti is there again, acting almost as an auxiliary forward coming from midfield. That was nicely done by Lentini. That's more what Trevor Francis was talking about when he spoke of his potential. Battistini. Here's Bremer. Torino's turn to retreat, and in fact the ball presented to them by Battistini. But Martin Vasquez was caught from behind rather by Serena. Klinsmann, that's a sweet turn, and a piece of world-class attacking play. And Jurgen Klinsmann making his first major contribution of note in this game, but it was worth waiting for.
Yes, it was a great turn off his right foot there, setting up the chance with his left foot. Possibly a little bit far out to trouble Marchegiani, but you know, when you go like half an hour without having an attempt at goal, sometimes you feel that just to get yourself on the in the papers, like it goes down as a shot on goal, you feel that you have to take these opportunities.
15 minutes to go to half-time. Torino 0, Inter 0. Half an hour, not without incident, but without a goal. Pizzi. Played back by Bianchi. Klinsmann. Bremer. Rather gave away his intentions there, and Martin Vasquez made the interception. Bianchi getting the better of Carrillo, but Serena, who might be expected to challenge for a cross like that, is not in the area where Bianchi thought he might find him. Here's Mandolini. Berti. Battistini going to the right this time. It's a fairly straightforward cross, and Serena was there this time, but so too was Marchegiani. And yet again, Muller isolated up front. And although Marchegiani, in kicking the ball quickly, was obviously trying to utilise the pace that Muller has, he just can't get the ball to him. Berti, can he do it this time? Well, he certainly has been. He's hurt in the eventual collision with the goalkeeper, but he has been a major weapon in Inter's philosophy in this game, coming from midfield.
Yes, some of the runs that he's making are absolutely superb. He reminds me very much of going back now 20, possibly 25 years to the days of Martin Peters, when he used to make them late runs into the box. In the more recent years, the likes of Brian Robson, they're so difficult to track down. Obviously, the ball has to be a good ball. We saw Klinsmann there playing it with the outside of his foot into the space. Once again, Berti was unfortunate not to get on the end of it.
No goals here, and only 3 in the Italian First Division so far, all scored by foreign players. 2 Argentinians. Claudio Cannicchia has given Atalanta the lead against Cagliari. Pedro Pasculi has scored for Lecce at home to Lazio, and Milan are leading against Fiorentina. It's Marco van Basten. One of Berti's great qualities, perhaps his greatest quality, is just his sheer athleticism. I should imagine he's a terrible man to try and keep up with at the training ground.
Yes, we're talking about him being unfortunate. He was also very unfortunate, of course, wasn't he, in the World Cup, because in the 3rd and 4th playoff place between Italy and England, he would have scored what would have been possibly the goal of the World Cup. That fantastic crossfield ball from Baggio. And once again, a late run from Berti, and a brilliant header past Peter Shilton, but you know, a terrible linesman decision stopped us seeing one of the best goals of the World Cup.
Well, Muller doing his running for Torino. He's forced a corner. What can Martin Vasquez come up with in terms of the service here into the centre? This is Baggio heading it back, and Zenga didn't make it. Pollicano, on his strong left foot too. And Zenga was let off the hook. I don't think there were too many other people to blame. He's going to blame the officials for a foul, I think. It wasn't given. But he doesn't take the responsibility himself very often.
Now you see the header back across goal there, and Zenga decides to come for it. And if you come, you must take the ball. Drops it there and gives Pollicano a good chance on his favourite left foot. And as you see, balloons it well high over the crossbar.
Romano. Oh, this is Sordo. Might be able to take it on. Muller! Terrific save. Well, there you are. It proves the point. Wonderful stop. Instinctive reactions against certainly the best finisher that Torino can put out.
Yes, it was good play there, because Muller didn't have much time. Side-footed it with his left foot, and I'll give credit where credit's due, and that was a terrific save from Zenga.
Sometimes over a first half in Italy, you do really notice the two teams rather jockeying for position to build a platform for what might follow. It hasn't really been that way in the 45 minutes here. Both sides will look back on opportunities to take the lead. And both will feel disappointed that they've had to make a substitution apiece. Slightly less damaging for Torino in that it was a defender that had to go off, and they're easier to replace, particularly in Italy. But there'll be a concern that they don't have to use up all their options before Rosario Labello finally does blow for half-time. And actually Fusi got kicked on the head, or kneed on the head, by Klinsmann unwittingly. Luca Fusi missed out on the World Cup in the end, but he was certainly a candidate at the start of last season for his graft in midfield for Napoli. He's done the same here, and Torino have been impressive in that respect, with Martin Vasquez living up to the pre-game publicity and the skills that have brought him here from Spain. But Inter with a greater edge to their play, and Aldo Serena just wrapping the top of the crossbar, and the now departed Nicola Berti making threatening runs until he was substituted. Torino will probably feel that Pollicano should have provided them a goal after Zenga's mistake, but it's a first half that I look back on with some pleasure, and a second half that I'm looking forward to as well. It's 0-0 here at half-time. And they're about to get the second half underway, having played resourcefully in midfield, but they've relied a great deal on Luis Muller. Here's Fusi. Let me just mention again that we may pick up signs of Inter feeling the strain of their midweek endeavours as the half develops. It's certainly something to keep an eye on. Pizzi. It was Carrillo, the substitute, who committed the first foul of the second half.
Yes, whilst you're on the subject of Europe, I think that, you know, for teams like Inter Milan, it is imperative that they qualify for these competitions. But I also feel that it does rather affect them when it comes to playing on the Sunday, because one or two players are tired through the actual game and through the travelling concern. And also, to lose a player of Matteus's ability, you do pay the price for it.
And Inter, unlike some of the other Italian clubs, particularly last season, haven't done particularly well in their European campaigns, so there hasn't been any reward for those sacrifices. Although they certainly felt, as Klinsmann hoped for a mistake then, they certainly felt that they won the championship in '89 because they went out of Europe early. And their great rivals Milan and Napoli kept going. So they had just one dimension to their season in the end.
Yes, I think I may have mentioned on this programme once before that when I was playing at Sampdoria and we had perhaps a game, midweek game in Europe, quite often you'd see one or two of the players who were actually rested, you know, from the Sunday League programme to make themselves fresh for the forthcoming midweek game in Europe. The Italians feel that you know, the players there, that they can't really cope with 2 games a week. It's something that you know, that they're not sort of accustomed to, and that's why they make these tactical changes, or, you know, perhaps leave players out just to rest them for the forthcoming game.
So we'll call this the second game of Inter's week and Torino's first. So that freshness might count as the second half develops. And Klinsmann joining the list of Inter casualties, but only temporarily, I'm sure. Jürgen Klinsmann going down to earth, and there's a feeling amongst the West German experts that he needs to come back down to earth in another sense as well. Maybe he got carried away with his own World Cup publicity. Serena. Here's Bremer. Now Battistini for Bremer again. Baresi. Ferry's ball forward to Klinsmann, who is so adept at turning his marker. And it's worth noting that his marker now is Pollicano, whose role has been changed since the injury to Annoni.
I think it's fair to point out that last week, you know, although I was very, very critical of Klinsmann with his theatrical diving, he is a very, very talented player. And let's not forget that in the opening game for Inter, when they played at Cagliari, he scored a very, very good hat-trick.
Martin Vasquez, an instant pass with great perception. But Pollicano still finding some time to get down his favourite left-hand side. Muller, good jump, and it was a header that had plenty of purpose to it. Trying to guide the ball down, I think, for a teammate. Put it too close to the goalkeeper. Klinsmann trying to take them on. Romano getting back with the tackle. There are the shots on goal in the first half. Rafael Martin Vasquez. Used to winning so many trophies with Real Madrid. some criticism of the Real Madrid coach John Toshak for letting Martin Vasquez go, but I think if a player gets a chance to go to Italy, even from Spain, he takes some stopping. And the coaches in the end can do a good deal, but they can really hang on to the player. Muller, and it was a wriggling run. Battistini, who's a tough character, accepted the responsibility. Now, was it a goal-scoring situation? You could argue here that once he got past Bergami, which he did with determination, that he was in and the FIFA ruling could apply. But Battistini walks away, having received a yellow card, but doesn't walk off. Trevor?
No, I think that Mr. Labella was quite correct there to book Battistini. It certainly didn't warrant a sending off, in my opinion. Although I am a forward, Martin, I have to say I don't particularly like the rule about, sending defenders off for, when they commit a foul on the player who's going at goal. It may sound strange, when you lose a chance of perhaps scoring a goal, but I think it is a little bit too harsh.
Well, Torino have still got a chance with Martin Vasquez. He scored! So they weren't denied a goal-scoring opportunity. In the 7th minute of the second half, Torino delight. And where will Walter Zenga point the finger here? The wall disintegrated in front of him and the goalkeeper simply collapsed. The ball was within range, but he could hardly have seen it.
Well, it was a terrific strike from Martin Vasquez. I don't know if we can actually see the picture from behind the goal, because I'm sure we see a clearer view, but I'm convinced that ball went directly through the centre of the wall. And Zenga was totally unsighted, because you try and see him actually stop the ball with his legs.
And Torino had players there trying to mask the view. It had the air of a rehearsed free kick about it, but undoubtedly justice was done, and Muller will feel that in particular, having been hauled down by Battistini. And here is Muller. Zenga left sprawling, the wall left wondering, and Trapattoni will be replaying that to his players when they get back to their headquarters, particularly if it ends up as the ultimate difference between the two sides after the 90 minutes. But it's great for the game. Inter have now got to change their philosophy, and it won't be too easy with two defence-minded midfield players now in the side for them. And this is Cravero. Muller. Well, it was heartbreaking for the Torino supporters when the club lost its first division status, but they bounced straight back, and the pain of relegation will be soon forgotten if they can make a real impact on their return and beat teams like Inter. Romano, they're on song at the moment, and here's the man who's supplied the goal, his first in the Italian First Division.
As I say, it's a tremendous strike, but I think we also got to give credit to Muller. He survived the first challenge there from, I think it was Bergami, rode over, then went at Battistini. As he was going past him, he was pulled down to the floor, given the free kick, and Vasquez finished it off with a tremendous strike. I do feel, though, that Walter Zenga was unsighted, and I'm convinced the ball actually went directly through the wall.
Klinsmann trying to make an impact here to rescue his team from defeat. Very much at home in Italy, Jurgen Klinsmann. He's a good linguist, speaks English well, and has picked up the Italian quickly, which is, of course, very important for all players who come from other countries. adjusting. Another outswinger from Bianchi. Over Battistini, Bremer. That would have worried Torino when he pulled his foot back. And Baresi outmanoeuvred superbly by Martin Vasquez. And the crowd here responding to a player who very nearly got a second goal courtesy of a deflection. If we talk about the differences between Italian football and elsewhere, the Italian papers would not have given that to Martin Vasquez. Had it gone in, it would have gone down as an own goal. But Zenga was very grateful that it dropped within his range after flying off the defender. Kegiani worried about Serena's presence in the air, but not unduly worried. Trevor?
Yes, it was something that I didn't always disagree with, because as you know, it's certainly difficult trying to score goals in Italy. And when you do have a deflection like that, you know, no way in the world for me that if that had gone in, it should have been given to Vasquez. I mean, he deserves to score a goal. He's ran 30 yards with the ball, great shot, and you know, that should be credited to him if it had gone in. But you know, to chalk them off for a slight deflection, in my view, was totally wrong.
But that's what they do. Muller. And now Sordo. And Lentini, Muller! Well, he had the hunger to score then, and it wasn't an easy shot to get any power into.
It's a good idea from Muller, but he just couldn't get enough swing to get the power necessary to trouble Zenga, but certainly a good idea, and he knew what he wanted to do.
And he took the ball really away from Lentini. Now Serena trying to climb and does that. "18 minutes to go. Bremer has gone across to take the corner. And Serena hoping to reach it. No joy for Inter still. And Carrillo with little option but to try and run the ball out of his own half. There wasn't much chance of picking out Muller. And he served his side well. Paganin lost out in the first place, and Lentini can make sure here, and has done. With 11 minutes to go, Torino believe that that's the clincher. With every justification. And lightning striking twice in the same city against Inter. 2-0 the last time they were here. It's 2-0, they're down now, and that was a very calm finish.
Yes, it certainly was. It was a good, powerful run by Lentini. He's a player that I've admired in this early part of the season. Takes his chance very well there, pushing it to the side of Zenga. An excellent finish under pressure.
They're thrilled. Who are labouring to recover one goal. Well, two, one would suspect would be beyond them. except that you look at the records of Serena and Klinsmann, and here is Klinsmann straight away. And that was brilliantly conceived. As so often in Italy, the strikers asked to make something for themselves. And Klinsmann looking to do that.
Well, he certainly showed a little bit of fantasy there. That was a marvellous skill, flipping over the defender's head. Hit the ball cleanly enough, but didn't have the power to get past Marchigiani. But a good piece of inventiveness there from Klinsmann. But I'm afraid for Inter, that goal has virtually killed them off. They must be feeling rather tired now after their game in midweek on Wednesday against Rapid Vienna, and going a second goal behind here is going to be too much for them to come back here. So I think, as they would say in Italian, it's buonanotte. Or to you, Martin, good night.
Yeah, I was just trying to work it out. So Inter, some 8 minutes away from what would be their first defeat in the league this season. And it would have been a fascinating battle, Mateus against Martin Vasquez, but because of the injury it hasn't materialised here, and Martin Vasquez has been able to bring the best out of the rest of Torino. Bremer, who's the latest to be pressed into service in midfield. Battistini also a change from his starting position.
I think what is important there for Inter is that if they have decided the game has gone away from them, which I'm sure it has with just 10 minutes to go, they must keep their calm. They can't afford any reckless challenges which perhaps result in players being sent off, because with Mateus out, Berti already out, they have got injury problems, and they can't afford to lose players through suspension.
Baggio. Muller's done well. He's worked so hard for the team without too many touches on the ball, but he's kept them occupied, Inter at the back. They've always needed two players to deal with him. There's just another different facet in Italy, that when experienced players are injured, the often replacements are very young players. There doesn't seem to be the ability to retain maybe players in their early 20s. They find themselves being loaned out to other clubs in the lower divisions.
Yes, that's correct, because with a substitutes bench, just leave it there for 1 second.
Because Muller might put the cherry on the icing on the cake. And he'll wonder now how he did. But he deserves the applause, not really the shake of the head. It was a superb show of inspiration on an inspired day for Torino.
Well, it was an absolute magnificent piece of skill from Muller. And what a disappointment that you don't see the back of that net bulge there, because I felt that when it left his foot, it was in the back of the net.
The temptation to blast it at the end of all that, when I suppose the really great finishers would have accepted what they'd done to set up the chance and then just tapped it in. The power didn't provide the answer, but it was wonderful to watch. Inter now with a free kick to be taken by Bianchi. And if only they could have got more towards Serena, they'll be wondering. Possibly there would have been a different story to tell here. But I said in the first half that I felt that it might be the right day for Torino. The circumstances in recent days will have conspired to help them. You don't know that when the fixture comes out of the computer. And they've accepted the opportunity.
Yes, they certainly have. They've played very, very well. It was a defensive lineup from Mondonico, but you know, the manager's been proved right, because they've got the 2 goals, which is going to win them the game.
And it's still 2-0, despite Bremer and Serena and Klinsmann trying to conspire there to bring into a goal. And here's Carrillo. Didn't come for either Muller or for Romano. See, out-jumped by Baresi. The whistle's already gone for an Inter free kick. They've got less than 4 minutes remaining. Bianchi, whip it in and hope something happens. Well, Klinsmann really flicking it through for Paganin. And the linesman says no to Lentini.
Well, I think Inter now, just looking at them, they really have accepted that they're a beaten team. They've obviously got tired legs, but there's 1 or 2 of them now playing without enthusiasm, and they've virtually given it up.
Battistini. Well, I wouldn't put Serena in that category. He's keeping going. Three minutes to go. Torino's last win in the Italian First Division was by 2-0 against Inter. And their first win back seems as though it's going to be a repeat of that. In between a successful second division campaign to lift the championship there, and that's bred obviously confidence in the winning habit. But they would love to win the game with no goals conceded, and to make sure of that they've got to deal with this free kick from Bianchi, who changed his philosophy there. Martin Vasquez applauded for fairly no-nonsense clearance. Baresi, who's been with Inter all his career. Bremer trying to measure up one of those spectacular strikes that have brought him goals for club and for country on the big occasion. But it's almost as if it would be wasted in these circumstances.
I think it was deflected, though. I think we'll see that, yes, it's a corner for Inter. It was a slight deflection.
And that was deflected too. Mandolini. And that was Battistini flicking it on, and Serena just a foot or so away from being able to reach it. Serena will reflect on his effort in the first half, which clipped the crossbar, and the departure of Nicola Berti before half-time was another indication really to Inter that it might not be their day. And they want to make sure that it stays at 2-0 and not 3. Battistini. Fusi lunging. Battistini was angry, as you saw. Rosario Lobello has been very inconspicuous as a referee, which isn't always the case when he's in charge. He's maintained law and order with a minimum of fuss. And I found myself criticising him for not being too harsh and not showing the red card. You cannot really overestimate what this means to Torino. Their first win of the season, that in itself says a great deal. To beat Inter, genuine challengers for the championship, that adds even more. And to do it with a performance that tactically was sound, technically was very good, and was embroidered with two eye-catching goals, will give even more satisfaction for them. Rafael Martin Vasquez, who was a central figure throughout, did the damage with that free kick early in the second half. Until that point, it was hard to separate the sides, although you got the feeling that Inter, who hadn't had the breaks with injury and indeed with the damage done to their playing resources, in midweek, Torino were fresh, and it showed for them. It was a high-quality game, and it's finished Torino 2, Inter 0. With Inter losing their 100% record, Milan had to beat Fiorentina to preserve theirs. Fiorentina's goalkeeper Landucci was soon in the firing line, from Evani, Carbone putting the rebound wide. But Landucci was caught out here by Marco van Basten's second goal of the season. It certainly looked like an attempted cross, though of course Van Basten quite capable of a deliberate chip. Either way, Milan a goal ahead after 28 minutes. And looking for more from Donadoni. Into the second half with Van Basten threatening again. Fiorentina included two players signed from Milan in the summer. Diego Fuser, whose drive tested Pazzagli, and Stefano Borgonovo, who distracted the goalkeeper sufficiently for another Fuser effort to bring Fiorentina level. Borgonovo certainly looked offside. But the goal stood 1-1. 5 minutes later, though, a former Fiorentina player, Daniele Massaro, won the day for Milan. Massaro's shot defying several attempts to block it. Fiorentina still with some fight left. This is Lubos Kubik. Donadoni now for Milan, but it finished 2-1. Milan played 3, won 3. Pisa had started the day proudly on top of the table. Padovano worrying Genoa here. But Genoa, fresh from their 3-0 win over Roma, didn't lack confidence in themselves. Aguilera with the cross and Eranio's header. A neatness to Genoa's play apparent again here. Paccioni's powerful shot. In the second half, Pisa went searching for the goal to prolong their surprising spell of glory, and how close they came to it. Covanelli somehow stretching to turn the ball back across. Simeone in vain. With that lunge, Pisa's first point dropped. Diego Maradona back in league action again for Napoli after 2 European Cup goals 4 days earlier. His aim to wipe out the shock of last week's home defeat by Cagliari. Careca here, searching for the first goal against another of the promoted club's Parma. From Maradona's free kick, Ciro Ferrara wasting a free header saved by Taffarel. An injury added to that insult for Ferrara. Soon afterwards, he was helped off. On came Renica, but within 3 minutes, he was unable to prevent this historic moment for Parma. DeMarco's centre, a magnificent header from Ozio. And Napoli now in danger of major embarrassment for the second Sunday in succession. More confusion here. Parma might just have increased their lead. Maradona's teasing corner almost carved a path to an equaliser. Only for Parma to nearly produce another goal of their own. Substitute Sorche ran virtually from the bench straight into a scoring position. Napoli say the European Cup is their priority, but it's more nervousness than slackness which is costing them points in the league. Sampdoria don't seem distracted by their European exploits, sending Bologna to a third consecutive defeat. At the heart of Sampdoria's success, the fair-haired Soviet midfielder Alexei Mikhailichenko. Yet Bologna should have taken the lead here. Defender Villa in a great position, but lacking a forward's instincts to take advantage of it. Detari following up, but the chance had gone. There's usually plenty of style about Sampdoria's play. Cesena crossing, Mancini heading wide. Their rewards came in the second half. This superb run by Mikhailichenko setting the tone. And in the 49th minute, a terrific goal by Lombardo. 1-0 to Sampdoria. Bologna unable to stem the tide now, and Mancini really in the mood. Sampdoria so exhilarating. More Mancini, Mikhailichenko magic, the post this time. But with 5 minutes left, this richly deserved goal. Mancini, Cesena, Mikhailichenko, marvellous. 2-0. Bologna, to their credit, almost scored here through Lorenzo. And at least Detari matched Mikhailichenko with his first Italian league goal. A splendid one too in the final seconds. But keep your eye on Sampdoria. In the Olympic Stadium, Roma trying to bounce back from last week's grilling by Genoa. Desideri's shot troubling the Bari goalkeeper Drago. Bari's imported players caught the eye, the Brazilian João Paulo taking on Roma all on his own. And that must have encouraged Radu Cioiu from Romania, whose fine effort was pushed aside by Peruzzi. A reasonable chance this for Roma for Andrea Carnevali, but no joy. Nor here when Desideri's mishit free kick almost fell for Rudi Foller. The breakthrough 3 minutes into the second half, a majestic header from Naylor's cross by Carnevali. His third goal of the season. Goalkeeper Drago very nearly deceived by Desideri. And then a more conventional save from Rizzitelli. Roma well on top now, no goals for Foller in this game, but Carnevali's contribution enough to produce both points. Next, Cesena, without a point after 2 games against unbeaten Juventus. Cesena with a real hunger for the ball here. Julio Cesar unable to clear the danger. Amarildo a little too anxious to take full advantage. Amarildo, a Brazilian forward, is more effective in the air. But still 0-0. And again, despite this determined solo burst by Ciocci. Juventus, with Fortunato off target from long range, had a mixed day. Thomas Hessler was sent off in injury time, but they got a penalty which Cesena were furious about. Baggio falling, it was ruled a foul by the goalkeeper Fontana. And Baggio converting his third penalty in 3 league games. But right at the start of the second half, Cesena equalised. Pierre Leone nipping in on the blind side of the defenders. Pierre Leone, an old teammate of Salvatore Schillaci at Messina, and he had much better luck in this game than Schillaci. Just look at this, the player of the World Cup missing an open goal. Everything he hit for Italy went in, but for Juventus, Schillaci is still waiting for his first league goal of the new season. Cagliari, the conquerors of Napoli last week, away again to Atalanta. Atalanta 3 points out of 4 and off to a flyer. Bourdin to Canigia, the Argentinian's second goal of the season, only 4 minutes played. Now the turn of Sweden's Glenn Stromberg to show off his repertoire of skills. Great work until it came to the finish. It's a Uruguayan on display next, Enzo Francescoli, fooling goalkeeper Peron with the free kick that brought Cagliari level. 5 minutes to go to half-time, but Cagliari didn't reach the interval without further alarm. Stromberg involved in setting up another Atalanta chance, the goal going in the end to Bonacina. Cagliari showed plenty of spirit in the second half. This is Fonseca, whose goal beat Napoli last week. Cornacchia too much on top of his header. Atalanta struggling to defend in the air at this stage. Nardini unlucky that his effort flew straight at Peron. Francescoli trying to equalise for a second time, but Atalanta held out 5 points from 3 games. They've made an excellent start. Finally, Lecce and Lazio, and because of the poor quality of the pitches from Lecce, our coverage is limited to the only goal of the game. But the technical deficiencies can't mask the skill of this Lecce move. The scorer, Pedro Pasculi, after 25 minutes. It gave Lecce their first win, an all-South American goal set up magnificently by Mazinho from Brazil, tucked away by the Argentinian Pasculi. Lecce's first goal of the season, the first conceded by Lazio, who still haven't scored themselves. Well, after 3 rounds of the championship, the only 100% record belongs to Milan. On 5 points, Pisa, Atalanta and Sampdoria. Bologna are the only club without a point. Early days, of course, but just look where you find the champions. Napoli down in 14th place. And next week, against Pisa, they face a potential hat-trick of disasters against promoted clubs, already beaten by Cagliari and now by Parma.